Stocks trickle downward as we go into the first week of May. Politicians get right up close to promising free housing as they go along. Everybody hates Tara, and my monitors go off. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Right up close to promising free housing as they go along. Everybody hates Tara. One day I will have a week where I have no technical glitches go off. I promise I'll have a week one of these times coming off here. Anyway, I am Jay Edgar and this is Contemporary. We are in the first week of May. We're actually on May the 4th. As everybody can see, I showed my support there. May the 4th be with you. And may all of the J.J. Abrams Star Wars films fall off a deep cliff and never be seen by the world again. We have got a ton to get to today. All kinds of stuff going on here. But the first thing I got to ask is, how many of you guys had a Ukrainian guy standing at the end of your hall screaming, "Rent? Rent?" I gotta wonder how some of these people are doing 2 months behind at this point. And we'll talk a little bit later about one of the solutions that people talked about. And we'll even talk a little bit about the discussion that went along with that. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and politics. We've got the generational gap. We've got Ed's World, which I will be on Ed's World tonight with a brand new face that wants to break into the podcast market. So please help me welcome the chill gamer Joe to the show. We've got the R-rated conservative. We've got Freckles and Britt. We have got Stephen Ignoramus, who is going to be making his comeback after his little hiatus and his new album coming out. Go and check out Stephen's album. It is great. I listened to it while I was driving around doing my civil disobedience yesterday. It is awesome. Go and check that out. We've also got Wyatt Birkenhoff over there as well. So go check all of us out. Check out some of our merch. We've got new merch coming and even a new show coming up in the wings. So before we get into the news, let's look at stocks. From Investors Business Daily, our daily dose of Alan R. Elliott. Dow Jones today leads futures lower as Boeing airline stocks take Buffett hit. Marijuana stock Canopy growth spikes. Stock futures traded off their early lows Mondays after comments from Warren Buffett sank airline stocks and sent Boeing to the bottom of the Dow Jones today. Gold miners Newmont and Barrick Gold gained alongside gold prices in early trade as concerns over a new round of tension between the White House and Beijing tripped up global markets. We talked a little bit about that on Friday. That dirty, dirty T word. Dow Jones futures bent lowest, trading 0.8% under fair value. S&P 500 futures shed 0.6%, while NASDAQ 100 futures ebbed 0.4% as the market feels for its next move as its rebound from the coronavirus stock market crash. Gilead Sciences and Newmont Mining led the S&P 500 up just over 1% each. At the bottom of both the NASDAQ 100 and S&P 500, airlines were taking an early pounding. Quarterly filings showed Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway had dumped its entire stake in 4 top airline stocks. Here's the deal. When Warren Buffett is selling, you know the airline is having problems. I'm not going to say the airline is fucked, but when Warren Buffett was famous in the crash in the end of the 80s. And I've said this on this show before. Warren Buffett was famous for the fact when they said, "Hey, how much money did you lose in this crash?" And he looked up and he said, "Nothing. I didn't sell." So when Warren Buffett is selling, you know you got to start paying attention. Delta Airlines, United Airlines, and American Airlines were all down in the 11% to 12% range. On the IBD 50 list, Barrick Gold added more than 1% ahead of its earnings report scheduled for early Wednesday. Gold futures traded up 0.9% early Monday, just below the 7.5-year high, notched on April 14th. The Van Eck Vectors gold miners, currently on the IBD swing trader list, gained 1.4%. Now the fun stuff. Marijuana stock Canopy Growth received a 7% boost by news late Friday that Constellation Brands had exercised $174 million in warrants, increasing its stake in the pot grower to 38.6%. Constellations produces Corona beer as well as wines, liquors. Its shares dipped 1% in pre-market trade. So, now is the time to start looking at stuff that might grow here, but I wouldn't get too eager just yet if you're looking to grab something on the bottom. But I think we're going to have a nice little short swing and possibly later on in the week. Disclaimer, this is not investing advice. Let's look at what CNBC has to say. What to watch today? Dow set for sharp drop as May's sell-off continues. This is from Matthew J. Belvedere and Peter Schack-Now. Dow futures were pointing to a sharp decline at Monday's open as investors weighed some states reopening their economies against escalating tensions between the U.S. and China over the coronavirus. On Friday, a 622-point or nearly 2.6 decline for the Dow Jones Industrial Average wiped out last week's gains after blue chips in April saw their best month since January of 1987. Depressed U.S. oil prices were also adding pressure on stocks, with West Texas Intermediate crude falling early Monday. WTI, the American oil benchmark, rebounded 16.7% last week. Yeah, we're back up over $1 a gallon over in town, so I waited like an idiot and I filled up. Didn't get to the 91 cents. Like an idiot. And I kept saying I was going to on the show, and I just waited until the tank was empty. And then I filled at $1.35, which is still not bad, considering what I'd been paying all of last year and the year before. That's actually not bad at all. Still, so from my perspective, that is still not bad, because that is $40 to fill up a 33-gallon tank. So I'm not complaining about it, but man, I wish I could have just got some of my hands on some of that sweet 91 cent a gallon gas. This Friday, the Labor Department's April jobs report is expected to see a jump from unemployment from 4.4% to over 16.1%, the highest level since 1939, according to Dow Jones. Airline shares were sharply lower in Monday's pre-market after Warren Buffett said Saturday his Berkshire Hathaway has divested its entire equity position in United, American, Southwest, and Delta. The prior stakes were worth over $4 billion in December. Buffett said the U.S. economy will withstand the pandemic as it has with all previous battles and crises. Nothing can basically stop America, he added. In World War II, I was convinced of this. I was convinced of this during the Cuban Missile Crisis, 9/11, the financial crisis. The billionaire investor known as the Oracle of Omaha also addressed the elephant-sized acquisition he has yet to make. Buffett hasn't made any big investments in several years as Berkshire's massive cash pile ballooned to a record $137 billion by the end of March. He said the reason is simple. He hasn't found anything attractive. Tyson Foods on Monday reported its fiscal second quarter net income fell 15% from a year ago as production disruptions weighed in on its results. Clothing company J.Crew filed for bankruptcy Monday, marking the first major retail bankruptcy of the coronavirus pandemic. I don't know if I would call that the retail bankruptcy of the coronavirus pandemic, because J.Crew has been having problems since 1998. Because nobody buys their crap anymore. President Donald Trump said he believes a mistake in China was the cause of the coronavirus pandemic, though he did not present any evidence for the claim. The comments during Sunday's Fox... We all know it came from China. The comments during Sunday's Fox News virtual town hall came hours after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that a significant amount of evidence suggests the virus emerged from a Chinese laboratory in Wuhan. I'm not making the correlation here, folks. If it came out of a lab that they were studying, whether it was bioengineered or not, and this is the important thing, I do think it may have been bioengineered, and I know a lot of my listeners do, but right now there's no evidence to say for sure that yes, that's what happened, but it's confirmed that they were studying it. So all it takes is a hole in a glove somewhere, and then a guy touching his nose, and boop, you've got the world-ending pandemic here that didn't end the world. An accident is not the same as an engineered bioweapon, but of course this is what NBC is going to try and say. Trump also said he's confident there will be a coronavirus vaccine by the end of the year. Sorry, I just got a chill run up my spine. Public health officials have said the vaccine could take a year to 18 months. Vaccines often take many years to develop and distribute. The World Health Organization has said there are currently dozens of coronavirus vaccines in development. Gilead Sciences' coronavirus drug remdesivir will be available to doctors and patients as early as this week. The Food and Drug Administration granted emergency use authorization for remdesivir after Gilead and the government last week released positive results from 2 separate clinical trials. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island plan to coordinate the purchasing of personal protective equipment for hospitals. All 7 states are also coordinating plans to reopen their economies. So, they're trying. I think some of these people are starting to see that it's becoming unsustainable. I did see another article earlier, but I didn't put it on the stack, where the Colorado governor said that this was all unsustainable, but he got away with it because he's a Democrat. Even though there were a couple of people in the comments saying, oh, well, this is going to cause people to die. You're going to kill people. Death is going to be on your hands. But people are trying to get back to work. People are trying to get out of the house before they do have riots like we saw in Michigan last week. And speaking of the numbers, it appears that we had a little bit of discrepancy with the CDC. Of course, now most people are out there saying that 65,000, 69,000 deaths, 60,000, 60,000, 60,000. Well, from the National Vital Statistics System over at the CDC, we have provisional death counts for the coronavirus. Now, of course, people are coming out and saying these are provisional, these don't count, these aren't official. Well, we're also seeing evidence that people are dying coronavirus adjacent or dying because they are with coronavirus, not necessarily from it. But according to the NVSS, as of May 1st, total deaths are 37,308 from COVID. From all causes are 719,438. Percent of expected deaths is 97, so we're down below expected. Pneumonia deaths are 64,382. Deaths with pneumonia and COVID are 16,564. Influenza, 5846. Deaths with pneumonia, influenza, or COVID-19, 90,165. So, right now it becomes a matter of, and this is why I say, find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Right now it comes from a matter of which system has the best evidence, and we do have evidence against the 65,000 number. I've not found any evidence against this 37,000 number, but we've now got 2 dissenting opinions that we can compare against each other and try and find the facts to support both and draw the real conclusions rather than just taking what the mainstream media is going to tell us. This is an interesting place to be in because both numbers are coming from the CDC, but this is definitely something to look into and keep track of. Joe and I are going to talk about this later on tonight too. So if this is only 37,000, and especially if we find out that there are even more people that had this because of antibody testing and asymptomatic cases, I mean, this is a blip in the radar, in the statistical radar, and we crashed an economy over it and built it back up, obviously, but we put people out of work and put people 2 months behind on rent because of this. But we will see what happens out of all of this. Speaking of rent, we'll talk about that now because I know that Midget B and Joe both had a conversation about the one of the women involved in this, but we'll start with The Hill. Billboard for Baltimore mayor vandalized with messages calling for no rent. This is from John Bowden over at The Hill. A billboard for the campaign of Baltimore Mayor Bernard Young was vandalized by activists calling for officials to cancel rent in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. The Baltimore Sun reported Sunday that the billboard, which was also altered to read "Fuck the Police," typically displays Young's name next to the picture of the mayor who took office last year. The spokesperson for Young told the Sun that the mayor had seen the message and was focused on efforts to fight the coronavirus outbreak. The mayor is aware of the alterations to the billboard, Miles Handy told The Sun. However, his sole focus remains on the health and safety of Baltimore's residents and leading the city through his pandemic. The vandalism comes less than a month before the state's Democratic primary, when Young will face off against a slew of opponents, including Sheila Dixon, a previous mayor of the city. A police spokesperson would not confirm to the newspaper when the vandalism would be covered up. Many states and localities, including Baltimore, have moved to halt evictions and rent increases during the coronavirus outbreak, but many left-leaning activists have called for leaders to go further and order rent to be canceled altogether during the crisis. Tens of thousands of Americans participated in a rent strike this week, declining to pay their rent in the hopes of spurring government action. Hey, if you guys want to go rent a place in Baltimore, for whatever reason you would want to go rent in Baltimore, I'm willing to bet that rent prices are going to go down. Maybe they might balance for a little while because people are going to have to cover the court costs for the evictions, but yeah, we're going to get to a point where they would rather rent the place than leave it go empty, and it's going to be empty. And of course, noted squad member Ilhan Omar had to weigh in on this. There's a video that goes with it, and we'll listen to it. It's 52 seconds. We'll listen to it. But on May 2nd, Ilhan Omar tweets out, "Leadership means acting today to prevent bigger emergency tomorrow. If Congress doesn't cancel rent and mortgage payments now, even more Americans will face mass displacement and homelessness once eviction moratoriums are lifted and this crisis is over. Never mind what happens to the bankers and the investors," and we've gone through this before, but let me get my ears on, we'll get your ears on, and we'll listen to what Ilhan Omar of Minnesota has to say.
So many people who are already living on the margins of society are being deeply impacted by this economic crisis. And so in my office, where we've seen an uptick in calls from our constituents, and people are talking us through some of the choices, some of the hard choices that they're making about how to feed themselves and continue to pay their utility bills, and how afraid they are once the Minnesota eviction moratorium is lifted, the kind of displacement that they see for themselves and their neighbors. People are literally making the choice on what to do just to survive every single day.
I hate to ask this and make this a thing, but one of the things I do have to ask is what happened to all that unemployment that just got approved throughout the country? And I do understand that people are waiting in line for this, and states like Minnesota are having a problem with the unemployment. But I mean, you're getting $600 extra every week, or every month rather, for your unemployment, on top of whatever your state would have given you. That's coming from the federal government. And I saw somebody get that payment. It'll come in later, but I mean, you're not displaced. You're going to be able to pay back your rent at some point, as long as you filed the proper channels for your unemployment. So all of this is the government trying to come in and take over the housing industry, and we need to watch that, because the government seizing the means of production is what their goal is, and that is going to cause major problems going forward. And I don't know what the answer is to this, to be completely honest. I haven't missed a rent payment yet. I have not. I'm an essential worker. I mean, yeah, of course, it was a little bit uneasy going in at first because of what we were seeing and the fact that I lost hours. But yeah, I haven't missed a rent payment. I haven't missed a utility payment. I haven't missed anything yet, because I know that it's all going to come due all at once right at the end. So let's move on here. This is some more COVID-related news, but in the politics side, this will be a nice transition as we go along. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe the ad blocker thing is going to keep me from reading this. You stingy cricks. Okay. We're going to take some disorganized time here because I didn't realize Star Tribune was bad with this, but let me see if I can find something that'll get around the ad block. Yes, here's one from a local Fox affiliate. One I can read. Sorry about that. We are going to be plagued with technical difficulties today, aren't we? Including me leaving my monitor on like an idiot. All right, from Fox 6, Wisconsin Supreme Court to hear oral arguments in Safer at Home lawsuit. This is from May 1st from AP Wire Service. The Wisconsin Supreme Court announced Friday that it will hear oral arguments early in the week in a lawsuit seeking to block Democratic Governor Tony Evers' stay-at-home order. The justices ruled 6-1 to accept the case and scheduled oral arguments for Tuesday morning. Via video conference, the arguments are expected to last at least 90 minutes. The ruling said that the court will consider whether the order was really an administrative rule and whether Palm was within her rights to issue it unilaterally. Even if the order doesn't qualify as a rule, the court said it will still weigh whether Palm exceeded her authority by closing all non-essential businesses, ordering all Wisconsin persons to stay home, and forbidding all non-essential travel. Conservatives hold a 5-2 majority on the court. Liberal Justice Rebecca Dellett cast the lone dissenting vote. The rule didn't include any explanation from her. Evers initially issued a stay-at-home order in March. It was supposed to expire on April 24th, but the State Department of Health Services Secretary Andrea Palm extended it until May 26th at Evers' direction. The order closed schools, shuttered non-essential businesses, limited the size of social gatherings, and prohibits non-essential travel. That's what I have to say about your non-essential travel. The governor has said the order is designed to slow the virus spread, but Republicans have grown impatient with the prohibitions, saying they're crushing the economy. Republican legislators filed a lawsuit directly with the conservative-controlled Supreme Court last month, challenging the extension. They have argued that the order is really an administrative rule, and Palm should have submitted it to the legislature for approval before issuing it, which, by our Constitution and our government structure, is actually correct. They've asked the court to issue a temporary injunction blocking the order, but delaying imposing it for 6 days to give Palm time to devise a legal administrative rule. Such rules can take anywhere from several weeks to several years to promulgate, and the legislature has the ability to stop the process if it doesn't like how the rule is shaping up. Evers has countered that the executive branch has the broad authority to combat communicable diseases, and Republicans haven't presented any alternative plans, but he faces an uphill fight with the conservative-leaning court. The state assembly's Republican-controlled State Affairs Committee held a long hearing Thursday on the State Chamber of Commerce's proposal to reopen businesses. Under that plan, all businesses would be allowed to reopen but would have to implement increasingly stringent procedures to protect workers and customers based on the risk they face in each situation. Now, this is a state that depends for its revenue mostly on tourism, people wanting to go see the leaves, people wanting to go see Lake Economowoc or Lake Michigan, or go down and see Milwaukee for whatever reason they want to go down and see Milwaukee. Go spend time in Madison. Go up and see the trees up in northern Wisconsin. We are a tourism-driven state, not to mention Wisconsin Dells, the water park capital of the world. And yes, people are taking this non-essential travel thing seriously. I mean, on the interstate yesterday, on a Sunday, there were next to no cars. I could have easily pegged out the speedometer coming home yesterday with no problem, just because of the sheer lack of traffic out there. So people are out there, but they're also not out spending money in some of these businesses out there. And a lot of them are closed because why open if you're not going to get anybody come in but the locals? So yes, this is battering the economy. And I mean, we've got a pretty low case total in this state. Out of a few million people, only 700 some cases in the entire state. But, of course, the executive branch, and this is great too, because the executive branch and the legislature are going to sit down and hash out who's got the authority over what. And we'll get a Supreme Court ruling as to who does. And it does look like this is bipartisan at this point. So this is good. I like this. But we're going to be watching this one closely because, of course, it's personal interest to me because I live here. But we'll be seeing this a lot closer than possibly what I would see in Illinois or talk about in Missouri or North Dakota or anything else like that. Let's move on. Let's talk about some of the big news for the week. This is from BuzzFeed, which I would normally not read from because they're not green check verified, but this was quite the interesting article, I thought, from BuzzFeed News. Tara Reade knows she has a difficult allegation, and she's had a difficult time getting a hearing. This is from Rosie Gray and Ruby Kramer. She's seen Joe Biden take questions on cable news and late night television. She's seen him host virtual town halls with voters and online fundraisers with donors. And from her home in California, where she is keeping daily watch on Twitter, Tara Reade has been waiting for anyone, to ask the former vice president about her story. And this was actually, this article, from what I understand, came out before the MSNBC one we saw on Friday. He was on television twice today. No one asked him. No one's asking the question, Reade said in a phone interview earlier this month. No one's even posting the questions. On that particular day, Biden sat for an interview with Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski on MSNBC's Morning Joe, appeared on a CNN coronavirus town hall with Anderson Cooper, took questions during a 45-minute fundraiser with dozens of donors. More than a month after Reade first detailed a serious allegation of sexual assault, Biden is set to address the subject in a Morning Joe interview scheduled for Friday morning. For weeks, he didn't even receive a question about the claims despite doing multiple interviews. Reade, who has fielded dozens of requests from reporters this month, said she is acutely aware that her allegations pose a complex terrain for the mainstream media's coverage of a Democratic Party that has long viewed both Biden as a beloved figure and President Donald Trump as a man accused of sexism and more than a dozen instances of sexual harassment and assault. As Democrats came to Biden's defense this month as an advocate for women, marking a turn for a party that has embraced the notion of believing women as a baseline posture in the Me Too era, Reade said that she believes her story has been given short shrift compared to other accusations of sexual abuse against powerful figures. She named as an example Christine Blasey Ford, the woman who said she was sexually assaulted by Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, then Trump's nominee to the court. After seeing her story refracted through the lens of political Twitter, Reade said in a series of interviews this month that she felt marginalized, smeared, and discounted, betrayed by Democrats she said she once admired. It was really devastating when Kirsten Gillibrand and Stacey Abrams and Hillary Clinton, all in the same day, just basically implied my story wasn't true and that they believed Joe Biden. I can't describe to you what that felt like, Reade said on Thursday, describing herself as a lifelong Democrat, and in particular a fan of Abrams and the former Georgia House Minority Leader who had been campaigning to serve on the ticket with Biden as her vice presidential nominee. Yeah, they are running this poor woman through the ringer right now. Every little bit of dirt she's ever had on her life is coming. I mean, this is harder than Paula Jones at this point. I talked a bit about it on Ed Talk on Saturday, and I can't believe they're doing this to this woman. Even if this was something that could possibly be tried in a court of law, that even if this fell within the statute of limitations at this point, what message does this end to? This is setting the Me Too thing, and there are actual victims out there of sexual assault. I don't know what happened in that hallway, and nobody does. That's something that we need to keep in mind. And for the most part, we are never going to know. This is going to be a 30-year-old he said, she said. But what does this do when it's politically convenient for an actual victim of somebody who is within the statute of limitations? What does it do for her ability to come forward, or his ability to come forward? Because there's a lot of that going around, too. This is just... For everything that the Democrats have claimed to champion, this is just setting them centuries backwards at this point. And it's the same thing with all these people that are coming forward 30 years later with Trump. Once again, no witnesses, no evidence, no nothing, and 30 years later, because he's in the spotlight and they want to get rid of him. And this just cheapens anything that a real victim could ever have coming forward. But of course, maybe this isn't true either. We've got more coming out of this. This is from the Daily Wire. New evidence emerges that casts doubt on one of the allegations facing Biden. This is from Ryan Saavedra over at dailywire.com. New evidence has emerged that appears to weaken one of the sexual misconduct claims facing Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden, as the timeline of events does not appear to match up. Law and Crime reported on Friday that Ava Murray claimed that Biden made a sexually inappropriate remark to her during Delaware's annual Gridiron Dinner in 2008 when she was 14. However, Fox News reported on Sunday that Biden allegedly sent an aide to the event and Biden had surgery that week. Fox News reporter Brooks Singman tweeted, "Fox has obtained a letter from the former vice president of the first state Gridiron Dinner saying Joe Biden did not attend the event on May 3, 2008. I have also obtained Biden's personal schedule for the day, which shows that that an aide went in his place. Biden had a minor surgery that week." Murray, who reportedly attended the event with her aunt, former GOP Senate candidate Christine O'Donnell, had originally alleged a verbal sexual harassment from Biden. "When it was Biden and my aunt's turn to say hello, he quickly turned to me and asked how I was," Murray said. "I replied with my age, and he replied with comment, 14, you're very well endowed for 14. I was confused, but it was definitely weird. He looked me up and down and hovered his eyes on my chest, and so I had some clue about the notion of his comments, but didn't fully understand at the time. We quickly separated from his area after the encounter. I feel his comments were verbal sexual harassment," Murray continued. "I think I was too naive to realize exactly what it meant at the time, but I vividly remember the uncomfortable feeling I had in the pit of my stomach during the whole encounter. It wasn't Biden's words alone that made me so uncomfortable. It was the look, the tone, the whole general vibe was off." In response to new details emerging about the timeline of events, O'Donnell, who had originally said she heard Biden make the remark, said that it could have happened a different year, but that she was standing by her original statement. No, not more of this. "Yes, it could have been another year. So what? She was a teenager when I ran for office. It doesn't make it okay," she wrote to Fox News. "It happened when I was running for office against him. If it was 2007, that makes it even worse." However, Fox News noted that Biden's schedule placed him in a different state at the dinner, or when the dinner happened in 2007. Oh, this is Ford all over again. Why do we keep doing this? Why? Why? If we had the aunt statement, I would be a little bit more warm to believing this, but man, why do we just keep doing this over and over again? All right, now we've got the weigh-in from Chancellor Whitmer over in Michigan. That's the word I was looking for. This is from Edmund DeMarch over at Fox News. Michigan's Whitmer says she believes Joe Biden. Supreme Chancellor Gretchen Whitmer, the Democrat from Michigan, said in an interview on Sunday that she knows Joe Biden and the sexual assault allegation leveled against him is not consistent with the person she knows. Whitmer, who is reportedly on a short list of potential vice presidential picks for the former Delaware senator, joined other Democrats like Hillary Clinton, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who have all come out in support of Biden. Just because you're a survivor doesn't mean every claim is equal. See, this is what's going to make it a problem to get actual justice for actual rape victims. Those words right there. She told CNN, "It means we give them the ability to make the case, and on the other side as well, then to make a judgment that is informed." Whitmer has been clashing with Republicans in her state over coronavirus lockdown orders that some claim is too extreme. The state has seen protests, including one on Thursday, that stormed Michigan's Capitol building. Biden has been accused by a former aide of sex assault dating back to the 90s. Biden has denied the charge. Reed told the Associated Press that she filed a limited report with Congressional Personnel Office that did not explicitly accuse him of sexual assault or harassment. I remember talking about him wanting me to serve drinks because he liked my legs and thought I was pretty, and it made me uncomfortable, Reed said in an interview Friday with the AP. I know that I was too scared to write about the sexual assault. This and the fact that they're sitting out here Paula Jonesing this poor woman is just... They claim to be the party of women's rights, and all they're doing right now is setting them back 100 years. Good job. All right. So now we're going to move off of Tara Reade, and we're going to move into actual politics going on here and what could happen in November, including what's happening once again in my state. This is from CNN Politics. From Veronica Strakwalersi. Wisconsin Supreme Court justice who lost re-election unrecuses himself in voter rolls cases. A conservative justice who lost his bid for re-election to Wisconsin Supreme Court reversed his recusal from a major case involving the potential removal of more than 200,000 people from the state's voter rolls. Justice Daniel Kelly, who cited a potential conflict of interest when he sat out the case during his bid for re-election, said Wednesday he will now participate, potentially making him the deciding vote in whether the High Court reviews this case. I, like every other justice on the court, have an affirmative duty to hear every case in which there is no ethical bar to my participation, Kelly wrote in an order. Having fully considered the matter, I have conducted that in light of the fact that this case cannot now affect any election in which I would be a candidate while the case is being decided, there is no ethical bar to my participation. In an upset for Republicans, Kelly lost to liberal Dane County Judge Jill Karofsky earlier this month in a race for a 10-year seat on the state's Supreme Court. Kelly had recused himself from the case in January, saying, "It has the potential of affecting an election for which I am the candidate in the April 7th election." I wonder if Karofsky would have done the same thing if the roles had been reversed. I mean, I know the answer, because I know how Madison is, but I definitely would need to wonder. The case could have significant implications for November's presidential election. In 2016, President Donald Trump won Wisconsin by less than 23,000 votes, and the state is certain to be a battleground between Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee. With Kelly's recusal, the High Court had deadlocked 3-3 in January on whether to take up the case immediately and ahead of the appeals court. Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler accused Kelly of being a sore loser. His final act of the court will be continuing the power grab set forth by Wisconsin Republicans in 2018 as he tries to strip hundreds of thousands of Wisconsinites, who a vast majority support Democrats, of their right to vote. It's not a strip of the right to vote. As part of an effort to update rolls, the Wisconsin Elections Commission sent a mailer in October to roughly 234,000 voters who may have moved. The commission said it would not purge them from the active polls list until after the 2021 spring election. The Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, a conservative law firm, then sued the commission, arguing the agency is required by state law to remove from the active voting rolls those who hadn't responded from the mailing within 30 days. Yes, that is the law in this state. A county judge in December ruled in favor of Will and instructed the commission to remove the roughly 230,000 people from the rolls. While the commission appealed the decision and took no action, the judge in January held the commission in contempt. The next day, a Wisconsin Court of Appeals issued a temporary hold on the judge's order. In February, the appellate court overturned the judge's decision and ruled that the more than 200,000 voters will officially stay registered. The decision allowed for the thousands of voters to stay in the rolls and headed for the state's April 7th presidential primary, which was held in person amid the coronavirus pandemic. In March, Will appeared to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. There's a critical matter for our state. Wisconsin voters deserve to have confidence in the integrity of this year's election, Will President and General Counsel Rick Eisenberg said in a statement in March. We hope the Supreme Court agrees to review this case and provide clarity on the actions of the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Kelly's term ends July 31st with Kurofsky sworn in. The conservative majority on Wisconsin's high court will be 4-3. So there are a lot of problems that go along with this, and just a lot of problems in general. First off, yes, that is correct. Justice Kelly recused himself from this case given the fact that it did involve his electoral chances. That was the right thing to do, and like I said, honestly, Jill Karofsky would have stayed right on there and tried to fuck this as hard as she could if she'd have had the same opportunity. I guarantee it. Furthermore, and this is something, and I've been talking about election politics for a long time, and I'm in my free time, which is never going to happen again, I do want to get down and make an analysis of election rules coming up before election days, including things like voter rolls and purging of the voter rolls. Now, I am in favor of a lot of things that Republicans are not. Wisconsin has same-day voter registration, which means you can walk up, register to vote on the spot, on the day. And I've done that here. I've moved around to a couple different districts over the past few years, so I understand the process of that. And I'm okay with same-day voter registration, as long as you have two things in the mix as well. First off, voter ID is an absolute must, because there's so many instances in this state where people can vote in multiple districts because of the fact that they get official mail to several different addresses. I know, like I said, when I was in college, the first time I voted, I had a legal address on campus and was getting official mail there that could be used for registration. I was getting official mail at my parents' house across the state and could register in that district. And even though they were in the same city, I was also getting official mail at my aunt's house, which was in the same city but in a different district. I could have voted 3 times that day with no problem, and nobody was said a word because we didn't have voter ID at the time. We had same-day registration, and I had the requirements to vote in 3 different districts. It's part of the reason that voter ID is such a big thing, and part of the reason that they're trying to get some of these voter rolls purged. Because that's the other thing, is you're automatically registered to vote if you're on a roll in a district that you've moved out of. My solution has always been, voter rolls get cleared out after every single election. If you want to do primaries to generals, that's one thing, because there's less likely of a chance that people move between the two. But every election, all the voter rolls just get wiped out completely. You're done. You're gone. And you can do that because you're not stripping people of the right to vote, as the courts in Wisconsin and CNN have tried to tell us. Because you can go in and register that same day. You can get in there, get registered, ready to go. And you have your voter ID on you. So you know the address on your ID is the voting station that you can vote from. You know those two things right off the top. Boom, done. So that's my solution to everything. I think it's the right way to do it. And yeah, I think that these 230,000 people should be off the voter rolls at this point, along with everybody else. Maybe not right now, like I said, because we did just have the primary. And so, yeah, primary to general, yeah, we can keep them on there. But after the general, clear those out. We'll register again next year after you get your new ID from when you moved. So that's the battle that's going on in my state right now. And yes, like I said, that's going to be a huge thing because both Democrats and Republicans they've got their knives and forks out and they're drooling over Wisconsin right now because they both want to eat this state alive. All right. So here's the story from the Lincoln Memorial. Trump on media hostility. If I was kind to them, I'd be walked off the stage. This is from Yale Halen over at Fox News. President Trump defended his growing list of contentious exchanges with reporters Sunday night during Fox News' virtual town hall, telling moderators Bret Baier and Martha MacCallum, "If I was kind to them, I'd be walked off the stage." The president argued, "I'm greeted with a hostile press, the likes of which no president has ever seen. The closest will be that gentleman up there," he continued, gesturing toward the statue of Abraham Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial. "They said Nobody got treated worse than Lincoln. I believe I am treated worse. You see those press conferences? They come at me with questions. They're disgraceful. Their manner of presentation and their words. I feel if I was kind to them, I'd be walked off stage. Trump was responding to a question submitted by Carolyn Perkins, a retired nurse and elementary school guidance counselor, who urged him to abandon his use of descriptive words that can be classified as bullying, and instead hold on to the wonderful attributes that make you our great leader. Trump had sparred frequently with journalists during the daily coronavirus task force briefings in the weeks after the coronavirus started to spread, turning much of the question and answer sessions into reflections on the media's frayed relationship with the president. They come at you with the most horrendous, biased questions, Trump said. You see it. 94 to 95% of the press is hostile, and yet we have tremendous support. We have the best support. We have the greatest support. But the media might as well be the Democrat Party. He continued, I appreciate the question, and I very much appreciate the sentiment behind the question. But I'm standing up there, and instead of asking me a normal question, the level of anger, the level of hatred, before trailing off. I look at them and I say, what's your problem? I think we've done more for any other president in the history of the country. That might be part of the problem right there. You know who the best president was? Calvin Coolidge. He didn't do anything. We've rebuilt our military. We've had the biggest, the best, the greatest tax cut in history. And yet we have a very hostile press, Trump went on. No one has seen anything like this. Well, I think old Abe might be looking down and disagreeing with you on who got treated worse. Because Abe took one in the back of the head. I'm pretty sure they treated him worse. I do understand his sentiment, though. I get that because I mean they're looking to try and trap Trump and stuff when they're up there doing these press briefings. This is not the same kind of press that they gave to Obama. I hate to do whataboutism, but I mean that is the absolute truth. When you look at what's happening around here, they softballed Obama, and now they're trying to get Trump in a perjury trap. These people shouldn't be journalists; they should be lawyers as much as they do perjury traps. So, but he does kind of egg a little bit of on too, and I mean he's used to being in the press and in the press's eyes and egging them on. He's been doing it for his entire professional life at this point. He's been a media mogul for as long as he's been an adult, pretty much. So there's a balance to it, of course, but I understand both sides of the argument. All right, and this looks like it's breaking this morning. I found it on Twitter. I actually haven't had a chance to look a lot into it here, but I'm a little surprised by what's happening. This is from Greg Ree over at Fox News. Dems deploying DARPA-funded AI-driven information warfare tool to target pro-Trump accounts. An anti-Trump Democratic-aligned political action committee advised by retired Army General Stanley McChrystal is planning to deploy an information warfare tool that received initial funding from DARPA, the Pentagon's secretive research arm, transforming technology originally envisioned as a way to fight ISIS propaganda into a campaign platform to benefit Joe Biden. Excuse me. The Washington Post first reported the initiative, called Defeat Disinfo, will utilize artificial intelligence and network analysis to map the discussion of the president's claims on social media, then attempt to intervene by identifying the most popular counter-narratives and boosting them through a network of more than 3.4 million influencers across the country. In some cases, paying users with large followings to take side against the president. Social media guru Curtis Hoagland is heading up the Defeat Disinfo, and he received the funding from DARPA when his program was part of an effort to combat extremism overseas. He explained in an interview with the Post that he was unhappy that top social media accounts often supported Trump, and he had effectively defended the president in recent days from claims that he had suggested Americans inject themselves with disinfectant. Yeah, we're going to go over that again. The effort raised the question of whether taxpayer funds were being repurposed for political means and whether social media platforms have rules in place that could stymie Hoagland's efforts if he plays along. A spokesperson for Fox News told Fox News that, a spokesperson for Facebook told Fox News that our policies require creators and publishers to tag business partners in their branded content posts when there's an exchange of value between a creator or publisher and a business partner. Politicians and PACs are authorized under Facebook's policy entitled Ads About Social Issues, Elections, or Politics are allowed to use the site's branded content tool, the spokesperson added. As a part of the authorization process for advertisers, Facebook says on the website that it confirms their ID and allows them to disclose who is responsible for the ad, which will appear on the ad itself. The ad and paid for by disclaimer are placed on the ad library for 7 years, along with more information such as a range of spend and impressions, as well as the demographics of who saw it. A spokesperson for Twitter did not immediately provide an on-the-record comment to Fox News. In 2018, Twitter launched its political campaigning policy, which promises a degree of transparency for paid political communications. The policy requires advertisers who want to run political campaigning ads for federal elections to self-identify and certify that they are located in the U.S. Candidates and committees will have to provide their FEC ID, and non-FEC registered organizations and individuals will have to submit a notarized form. Additionally, handles used for political campaigning advertising will have to comply with stricter requirements, Twitter's policy states. The handle's profile photo, header photo, and website must be consistent with its online presence, and the Twitter bio must include a website that provides valid contact information. We will be including visual badge and disclaimer information on promoted content from certified accounts in the near future. This will allow users to easily identify political campaigning ads, know who paid for them, and whether it was authorized by candidates. So this went on from being a pretty amazing allegation saying that there's a general that's using taxpayer-funded DARPA technology to support Joe Biden, to going on to being pretty much a commercial for social media. Oh, come use Facebook, we'll have transparency. Come use Twitter, we'll have transparency. Meanwhile, this general is using wartime technology in a campaign. I do hope that we get more information off of this, because that is pretty incredible. All right. That destroyed some of my faith in humanity, but since this is Monday, now we talk about something that restores my faith in humanity. And I can't believe that I'm about to read an article from CNN talking about something that restores my faith in humanity. But from CNN Travel, customer leaves $1,300 tip to support Texas restaurant on day it reopened after coronavirus shutdown. This is from Alicia Lee. And this is amazing. This is proof that the free market does better than government intervention anytime, anywhere. And private charity is 10 times greater than any government charity could ever be. From CNN, the lights were on and the tables set at Frog and the Bull, that's what it's called, on Friday as the restaurant in Austin, Texas welcomed back customers to its dining area. It was already an unforgettable day for owner David Fernandez, who for weeks had looked forward to reopening after the coronavirus stay-at-home order was lifted. But one customer's welcome back gift made the restaurant's return even more special for Fernandez and his employees. A man and his family who had visited the restaurant before on Friday ordered a filet mignon, scallops, grilled steak, and other items. The check came out to a hefty $337, which this has got to be a pretty fancy place to begin with at this point, because getting that down a regular pedestrian area would still be expensive, but it wouldn't be any $337. But then the customer asked his server to double charge him. The server, 18-year-old Josh Peikoff, had never received such a request, so he brought out Fernandez to help. He said, "Charge me double for everything," and I asked, "Are you sure?" Fernandez recalled. He said yes. But after the customer received his updated check with the double charge, he then added a $300 tip for Peikoff and another $1,000 for the house. According to a picture of the check, his total came out to be $2,029. I was really shocked at first because I didn't understand why he was giving it to me, Peikoff told CNN. But he said that he was extremely grateful that we were open and putting ourselves at risk to serve the community. I didn't really know what to say, Fernandez told CNN. I was extremely generous, and I was just so wowed by it. The Frog and the Bull, an Iberian-inspired tapas restaurant, wasn't even 5 months old when the coronavirus pandemic led to an early closure on St. Patrick's Day. Like most of the restaurant industry in the U.S., the restaurant was hit hard due to the coronavirus crisis, and Fernandez had to lay off most of his employees. The skeleton staff tried to keep the restaurant going with carry-out and delivery menu, but the momentum the restaurant had gained in its first 5 months was lost. And Fernandez said he and his staff were scraping for survival, literally from payroll to payroll. We literally overnight reinvented ourselves from an upscale casual dining establishment into what I told my executive chef had to be a badass food truck without wheels, Fernandez said. I like that. So when Texas' stay-at-home order expired on April 30th and establishments started opening back up Friday, Fernandez was excited. We were well prepared to deal with the advisories. He said, for example, we can only seat 25% max capacity, so we have a very strict seating scheme that's timed out to keep people safe. The extra money from the generous customer will help the restaurant get back on track with its bills, Fernandez said. While he doesn't know any further details about the customer, Fernandez said he will make sure the customer is well taken care of the next time he comes around. That is amazing. I criticized CNN for all of its stupid fluff pieces last week, but they knocked this one out of the park. This is amazing. I'm a little sorry CNN was the one that got to break it, but this just warms me in a way that nothing else does. And I hope that the essential workers out there, I know I will probably be doing this come down once we finally open up restaurants again. The people that had the money, the essential workers, the people that were able to go to work with, I hope that they are a little bit more generous with this because, I mean, they're going forward on their bills. Most of them have all their bills paid throughout the month. I know it's going to be harder for some of the people that were furloughed, laid off. And even if they wound up getting a little bit more money off their unemployment, that's going to be, they're going to be coming in with a hard time for this. So this man, he just restored my faith in humanity. He absolutely did. And I hope Fernandez pays it forward, and I hope that Peikoff pays it forward and does this nice for somebody else. And niceness begets niceness, and I do hope that this continues and carries. And I hope other people see this and decide that, yes, this is amazing, and this is what I wanted to be remembered for. And this guy's not even taking any recognition either. I mean, yes, obviously, of course, they've got the name and everything on him. Not the name, but the card number. They could easily find the name if they really wanted to, but yeah, no recognition, nothing sought. He just wanted to give money to these people to help them get going and get started again. That's awesome. That's amazing. So I'm going to take and link this in the Discord so you guys can go back and read this and see the receipt too, because I'm not showing it up on the screen right now. So this will be linked in my Discord. That is in the description below if you guys want to get into it if you're not in there yet. So come on in. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have the discussion. But yeah, that was amazing. I was really excited to see this. But with that, we're going to call it a day. I'm going to go get some breakfast here. So thanks everybody for coming in and watching. We will be back here later on tonight with the Chill Gamer, Joe, as he's looking to break into the podcast field. I'm really excited to give him the opportunity. So come and check us out. We'd love to have you, and we will read your questions and comments in between topics. So come on in, get in that live chat, and come and join the conversation. Until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.